meeting, we will attempt to record, stream live, and publish in accordance with Council's electronic recording of meeting policy. Due to the pandemic and the requirements of social distancing, to keep you safe, we are not able to allow public to attend the meeting. Attendees are advised that they may be subject, no, I don't need that one. Today's meeting may be streamed live as well as recorded and published on the Southwest Middlesex website and YouTube channels. Council, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, we'll move on. Council, any additions to the agenda? Seeing none. Yes, Ian, go ahead.
Through you, the Mayor.
Ian, do you have...
Yes, through you, Mayor. I sent an email to Jill a bit ago. Maybe she didn't get it, but there's no link for the meeting on the agenda for the public.
All right. Okay. Well, we can't do much about that at this point in time in the meeting. It has commenced, Ian, and
okay.
Let's get the formalities looked after, and then perhaps we can address that. Yes, go ahead, Jill.
So it's added. Thank you.
Okay, it's out on now.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Any further additions to the agenda, Council? Seeing none, may I have a motion to accept the agenda as circulated? Councillor McGill, Councillor Vink, all in favor? All in favor? Everyone's frozen. Nope, just give you time here. All opposed? Carried. Delegations and presentations. Jill, I have none on my agenda. Krista, I see your hand up. Mark? Yeah. My gosh, we have poor connectivity here today. Delegations and presentations, I see none. We'll move on to number 5. Council, just a few opening remarks. The purpose and objective of tonight's meeting is not so much as an exercise of crunching numbers, but seeing what is behind us and what is ahead of us. Council will have time to consider numbers down the road. We're not going to rush this. We want this right. This budget allows Council to put their own visionary focus on spending and allows us the opportunity to hear our administration's thoughts and desired direction as well. It will be and is Council's decision on the financial direction we take. In order to make good decisions, good information is required, and that is much the responsibility of our staff. And that being said, we will hear from them very shortly. Fire, Jill, nothing there. I was very pleased to see the signage out front of the fire halls in Southwest Middlesex, welcoming our new chief. That was very kind of the volunteer firefighters to do that. I think that's a warm welcome to anyone who is starting a new job, and hats off to those folks. We will now get into discussion on budgetary background, and the administration is first. Jill, if you would like to take us through your business plan at this time, we would appreciate it very much.
I don't mind doing that, but I think we're going to turn it over to Kristen for a bit of an intro into the discussion, if that's all right with you.
That all right with you?
Thank you.
Okay.
It is, Kristen. You go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to give you some introductory remarks before we start into this process. So as we begin in these budget deliberations, there's just a few things I'd like to bring to the forefront of your mind. The first, obviously, is the global pandemic that we've been in since March 2020. This has created a lot of uncertainty within the economy, financial struggles for our residents, and increased workload for some of the staff. Time that staff would have used to undertake projects has largely been spent creating and revising processes and procedures to adapt to the COVID-19 restrictions. Throughout 2020, we have seen some staffing changes, and with this comes additional work in advertising, reviewing resumes, interviewing, hiring, training. So that has certainly taken up a lot of our time. Our current procurement policy requires quite a bit of work for purchases over $5,000. So for some of the routine purchases, it does cause a little extra work, more work than some of our surrounding municipalities with larger limits may have. As we go through the capital and operating budgets, you're going to see several components that are reflective of the economy and prior commitments of council. And some of these we have little ability to change. Some of these include reduced funds from assessment growth due to the deferral of impacts assessment rule increases that were originally scheduled for 2021. So for example, in 2020, we received about $310,000 in increased assessment revenue that we could apply towards our budget. This year, we're getting about $60,000. So right off the bat, quite a bit of a hit there. Our OMPF has been reduced by almost $10,000. Closure of Limerick landfill and work required at Trillium is likely going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Our insurance rates are increasing probably about $50,000, and that's just due to the market. It's not because of our experience or any claims that we've had. That's just the market increase. And we've committed to purchasing some things last year that, of course, required debenturing into future years. So, or some purchases this year, I guess, 2 street pools, Sterling truck, and the backhoe and the daycare would all be newer purchases this year that we'll have to include in the 2021 budget. We have been able to make some savings with the staffing changes and department reorganization, so that should help alleviate some of the pressures. But we've also had several capital requests that'll be presented to council for consideration, including items brought forth from fellow councillors and direction from council. And some of these include accessible parking spots on Main Street for $60,000, relocation of a crosswalk for $15,000. You don't have to write this down. I'll give you all of this later. Upgrade of the Historical Society roof to steel for $45,000. Paving of a parking lot to be used for staff and patrons of Main Street, Glencoe, for about $50,000. And parking considerations at the Appin Presbyterian Church for $25,000. As these and other projects are presented, I want council to keep in mind that they could choose to either proceed with the projects in 2021, remove them entirely from the budget, defer them for another year, or alternatively reserve a portion of the funds this year so that we could do the work in future years. I checked again this morning, and as of September 2020, the provincial inflation rate is at 0.6%. So I used 1% in the budget amounts to be a bit conservative. We might not hit that. So for today's meeting, my plan was for each of the senior managers to take you through their department plans, and that is going to give you a bit of an eye on what they have planned for the upcoming years and what you may see in the budget presentations in relation to their departmental plans. And then we can dive into reviewing the budget survey results. So that's as far as I foresee us getting today. And then for the next meeting, I'll have all the budget binders ready for everybody to go. And we should be able to dive right into capital and operating and see where we're at there. So does anybody have any questions with that? No, I know I just talked at you for a bit, but so if everybody's okay there, then I guess we could start with Jill's departmental plan.
Yes, thank you very much, Kristen. I appreciate that. And Jill, you go ahead and with your business plan, and we're anxious to hear it.
Sure. All right. So let me see if I can pull this up onto my screen and share it with you. Okay, so we'll go through this in a little bit. I'm not going to read it all to you. You've only received this on the agenda recently, but I don't think you want me to read it to you. I'm going to touch on some of the aspects that have changed, but predominantly there haven't been a lot of changes associated with the service strategy, nor with the type of work that falls within this department. So we'll move on pretty quickly through those first few pages, and then we'll talk about the program achievements for 2020, and then the initiatives that we're looking forward to in 2021 and beyond. To start off, as you know, there's a number of statutory positions within this particular department, including myself with that dual role with the clerk and the CAO, as well as a deputy clerk and a CEO. We've got the building inspector as well through our joint services. And we also have planning under there by law enforcement as well, just a general overview of how the CAO function lays out within our government. So the service strategy is to really try and help council and the community achieve its goals and objectives for development, and making sure that we're in line with what it is that we're required to do through legislation, as well as council policy and bylaws. I would note, we have, as Kristen has already talked about, sometimes challenged by economic fluctuations and what's happening in a pandemic right now, in the situation we are in. We're not alone, but it certainly impacts us. And the decisions that you make, I'm sure you are all being mindful of that. I know that senior staff are, as well, as we've gone through our proposing what we're putting forward for this year. So the clerk's department continues to carry on with moving towards a more electronic records management program. So we're having some success in getting some of those documents in, which means less capital work for storage of paper documents. So that's a project that is ongoing, and I expect to see it continue to grow. We'll start to move into prepping for the election in 2022. A lot of the work happens ahead of time, and we're very lucky that we've got a strong team of clerks within Middlesex County that tend to work together. So I'm hopeful that that's the plan for the next term and prepping for the election process. That will be a significant amount of time spent over 21 and 2022. The planning side of work, we are continuing to work on encouraging the County of Middlesex to help support us in working through an official plan before the end of this term of council. So they've had their own challenges in managing to keep up with the workload, as there's lots of development that's happening, which is good, but the planners are certainly very busy. So the bigger projects, they've struggled a little bit to move some of those forward. But the county planning director has assured me that starting next year, that they will be able to begin with BOP review. One of the things that he has noted that they will need in order to help move that project along is the modeling studies, and Greg and I have been working on getting a package out to the market so that we have engineering firms that can respond to getting some modeling done for our water and wastewater systems. And that information helps in the planning side of things to see where the best growth opportunities are based on the least costs of adjusting infrastructure if that's possible. So building services, you know that there was a big change over this year in moving forward with the joint building services with Adelaide Metcalfe and Middlesex or North Middlesex. So we've got our CBO, Shannon Black, who you've met, and she works in all of the 3 municipalities, and our building inspector is Sandy Lale. And Shannon is in our office once a week, but available for questions pretty much at any time. I've never had any trouble getting a hold of her. And Sandy's in our office a couple of days a week, also readily available to deal with questions and responses. The joint committee has met a couple of times and has been reviewing what it is how we're progressing through the business plan established for that committee. And Shannon has provided input into the budget for this cycle. Some of the requests that we had for 2020 were reviewed and determined maybe to push off, and that includes the electronic building permits for now, only because they did attempt to try that in North Middlesex and struggled a little bit with some of it. And Adelaide Metcalfe doesn't have quite the infrastructure in place right now locally to make that happen. So we would like to get everything lined up so that the paper-based processes are tickety-boo, and then moving forward into trying to see which system best can support an electronic business model for building permits. So bylaw enforcement, we're not proposing any changes with respect to that. We continue to work with MEU, although I do know that they were also extremely busy this year. So having bylaw enforcement be given the responsibility of enforcing provincial and health unit regulations for gathering in public did cause them to be required in many, many places where they provide services to. So I do know that they were very busy this year. So then we touch on a little bit about the role of the CAO, how we work together on the HR side collaboratively, and health and safety, economic development. I would spend just a little bit of time because Council has really been supportive of moving forward on the economic development agenda with the idea of growing the community and matching up with the Council's strategic plan and what it is that has been adopted in the economic strategy as well. IT, we continue to work with the County of Middlesex on the IT front, and they have provided their input based on what we've said we are looking for. I think we're doing a great job locally in really taking advantage of IT in terms of making the most and efficient business decisions moving forward, so moving projects along. You've had a little example of seeing what it is that we can do with our work order program, and I think that's been very successful, something that got implemented this year, but a little bit at the very end of last year, but more so this year, and that's been going along very well. We couldn't do some of these projects without IT as well. Accessibility, of course, very important for us in trying to make sure that we are meeting our responsibilities under the AODA, but also leaning on the accessibility coordinator with the county to provide advice to make sure we're up to training standards, et cetera. We've listed out here the key customers that we have within our department and the kind of services that get provided, the kind of pieces of legislation that we are responsible for, making sure we're aligned to. And then moving on to the links to the strategic plan and the asset management plan. So strategic plan that Council adopted does lay out the goals and around prosperity and sustainability, supporting growth, but in a fiscally responsible manner. With respect to the asset management plan, the senior staff have been working very hard to try and get refined data, working with Public Sector Digest, PSD, to get more information, better data included into the system so that we are then in a better position to share more information about where we are with respect to our assets, where we need to replace them, and getting condition assessments done in order to meet the service level standards that are required. So that's been busy, busy, busy. So some of the things that we have managed to complete this year, and some of the projects are ongoing. So one of the objectives is implementing the economic development strategy year 1 action items. And you'll see from what's in that chart there that a lot of these things have come to your table and you've seen them and moved forward on them. So communications plan has been approved. We continue to work with property standard enforcement, working with local organizations to do some background research so we can have better information around the Arboreta. The Economic Development Committee provided a list of, or an inventory of tourism assets within the community, continuing with the public communication as well, doing some work with the Economic Development Committee regarding roles and responsibilities. Then regular communication of you're getting those progress reports from Sheila, and working very closely with Middlesex County in moving forward on both planning matters and economic development matters. I mentioned Sheila already, but the hiring of an economic development and communication officer was part of the strategy that was outlined, and council supported that as a pilot project for a 2-year term. So I think we've had some great success for that in the first year. And we have been in discussions about marketing of the certified site. We've got some signs ready to go and get put up. Some drone work is going to be done for videos. So that's coming together quite nicely. Another project on our plate was website redevelopment. County IT led the procurement of it. And I would say, again, given how busy County IT has been in responding to all of the needs of the various corporations that they support in trying to get people to work remotely and supporting the systems, they've done a tremendous job this year. So this particular project probably moved a little later on their calendar, but justifiably so. So they led the procurement exercise, and we're working with them along with other local municipalities as well. And that project coming together well. Records management policies and procedures, again, council saw those earlier in the year and those were approved. And we are continuing to work with Laserfish to move our documents into that platform. And each department has assigned a key person within that department who's responsible for the records retention and getting the information into that system. The land use planning consolidation, again, as I mentioned, a little bit struggles there on the county side and just managing to keep up with everything, but they've been working on consolidations. Some of that still has to be brought to council. The official plan review, I touched on that already. It's been moved to 2021 instead of 2020, but with a little bit of work and requests from the county for us to provide additional information and studies to help support that exercise. Then the revised electronic platform, again, that's something that we're working with County IT on. And I think they would like to push this to the very beginning of next year for it to be implemented. The eGenda platform that you use right now, the County of Middlesex was the original procurer of that particular application, and the application is no longer being supported. So they're moving to another type of meeting process. And we're working with them on that as well. Public engagement, I think you've seen a noticeable difference and more communication going out to the community through various social media. I would say probably we can't engage the same way that we normally do when we're not in a pandemic situation, but certainly on social media, there's been a concerted effort to get more information out to the public. Service delivery review. we have been working closely with on the joint exercise that we were successful in getting funding from the provincial government to do 2 different reviews. So with the county and with some of the other local municipalities within the county. One was for payroll. So there was a review of all the local municipalities that were participating in the exercise, their payroll systems, just to gauge maturity and if there was opportunities for efficiencies. And the second one has to do with the top 10 opportunities were for digitized services and programs. And they looked at all of our different processes across the board, came down to a list of 10, and then did a bit of a deep dive into each of those to get more information and make suggestions. So those reports will be coming. As I mentioned a little bit about the electronic building permit software, 3 different programs were reviewed by the CBO. And there was an exercise in North Middlesex trying to use one of those platforms. And just because of some of the things that had to be done, it wasn't working as well as they'd hoped. So they want to have just based on paper for a little bit longer and then really be able to move forward next year. And I already talked a little bit about the asset management plan, continuing to refine that data. So some of the other things I would say should be noted, and Kristen already touched on this, the COVID pandemic response was something I think that council, the emergency control group, senior staff, the departments, all the members of the team really had a hand in making sure that we were continuing to deliver essential services to our community to support them at this time while we're in an emergency situation. We're in a slightly different place right now, but I would say for the first several months, it was pretty all-consuming as to how we were responding and changing things on the ground to make sure that we were keeping our residents and our staff safe. So we adopted new health and safety procedures. We implemented some opportunities for remote working. We established a community support group where volunteers, including some of those amongst right here on the screen, supported people with a call-in program. And we also made recommendations for certain projects be deferred to help contain costs associated with something that arose that we weren't planning for during the year. The child care facility construction is underway. We have the service agreement with the Young Children's Center. So that was a busy part of the beginning of this year. And now with the construction, which was delayed a little bit due to the pandemic as well, and some services not being able to be provided, but we're in a good spot now. We did do restructuring of operations into one department. And hiring, as Kristen has mentioned, we've done a lot of hiring. So hiring for a fire chief, hiring for a deputy clerk, hiring for an economic development and communications officer, doing the work from home and telecommuting policy. But we also had the Newberry water agreement that finally came to fruition, which was great. Along with shared service agreement for provision of drainage services with Adelaide Metcalfe. We did some health and safety policy review as well and implemented a number of new procedures and updated those in our HR downloads platform. The landfill for Limerick closure plan was approved, and you had a presentation on that, and Kristen touched on some of the costs associated with this and the need to save some money so that we're ready to do the work and before the requirements. Then we also had a number of site plans that were completed this year. For Crown Buds Inc., Agris, we had the Wardsville Townhomes and Jura Hill. And then we've got one currently under review for the townhomes that are proposed to be on Main Street across from where the daycare is going up. We've got subdivision agreements either underway or moving forward. So some are almost completely done, which is that second phase of Tanya. Some are at the development stage, so I would say in Melbourne. And then we have other ones that have been filed and are in those particular cases with the county right now. Then we provided some information to you about the local governance impacts of changes to the Police Services Act and some submissions of proposed routes for natural gas expansion program within the community, and the idea of doing some branding exercises. So all pretty exciting things for the year in a interesting and challenging, sometimes difficult year for lots of people. So moving forward into 2021, the goals and objectives remain continuing to implement the action items from the economic development strategy and working with the committee on moving those action items forward and then bringing those to council. Hopefully at the beginning of the year, the website redevelopment is completed. So again, that's working with county IT and the firm that is doing the work for us, and community improvement plans and engagement and adoption. So council approved in just recently having Stantec assist in doing a community improvement plan or a CIP. And so that exercise will fully get underway in the near future. We have been working to do some diving into what it is that where we're starting, and they've got a fairly aggressive schedule, so we'll try to keep with that. Electronic document management, that's going to be continuing to move forward and implementing an electronic document management system for our municipal office. Then, as I mentioned, municipal election preparations. So we'll start to get underway with prepping for 2022 and doing the official plan review. Mention the electronic platform because it'll sort of shifted from this year to next year. And we will continue with public engagement as well. And then based on some of those outcomes that we hear from the reviews that we're working on jointly with Middlesex County and the other local municipalities, if there are outcomes that we think that are going to be beneficial to our community specifically, then we'll be making recommendations to council on that. Our hope is that that modernization fund, so the province assigned specific amount of money just for reviews, and that hopefully there's a next phase of that that allows for those reviews and findings to be implemented. Again, I've talked about the electronic building permit software and continuing on with the asset management plan, because by July of this coming summer, we will need to have a new asset management plan that is based on the regulation under the Infrastructure for Jobs and Prosperity Act, which dictates what it is that municipalities have to have in their asset management plan, which is a lot more detailed than what is currently in most municipal plans. A community safety and well-being plan. Again, this is a joint exercise with many of the local municipalities, using a consultant to help us with this required plan, where we try to identify and look at ways that we can make sure that the community safety and well-being is considered as we are moving forward. So development charges, that's something, there's some training on the agenda in the next week, I believe, with having some consultants come and speak to both this council and to Adelaide Metcalfe Council and just describe development charges and what they can do and how they can be implemented within a community if council is interested. And then as we carry on to 22 and 23, then many of the same things, just carrying them forward. I guess the only big difference would be that by the end of 22-23, we'll be focused on some council orientation and education programs. So I'm not proposing any changes in terms of the delivery of the program for this year in terms of staffing levels. The staffing amounts would remain the same based on what we had approved last year. And that's where we are. Training and development requirements, just a listing of the types of conferences and sessions we might be able to participate in this year, or this coming year. As you know, probably most of these are going to continue to be virtual sessions. Sometimes that's terrific and makes it really easy to attend. So those are options for us moving forward. And that's about it for me at this point. So I will just stop my sharing and you can ask me questions. I'm happy to address them, or Kristen, if you want to carry on with the next one, I'm fine with that as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill, very much. Before we move on to Kristen, we'll just take this opportunity, as Jill offered, to ask Jill questions. Council, any questions? Direct them directly to Jill regarding her report, if there are any. I'll give council a moment to sit on that. And failing to, if we don't have any, we'll move on as soon as possible to Kristen. Any questions, council? Mike, it's good to have you back.
Mary Gay, I think.
Not seeing. Okay. Yeah, I can't. Let's see if I can go full screen here, guys. And Mary Gay. I have not got a visual of Mary Gay. Does she have her hand up, Jill?
She did. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, Mary Gay, go ahead. Unfortunately, I cannot see you on my screen.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Jill, my question is, I'm just wondering how close we are to having every department on the electronic document management. So
we have an assigned license for a representative for each department. It's a project that I would say a clerk's department is far more keen to move forward. It fits into our profile. So we have, Kendra has been working very hard to make sure that specific things are going into the program. So again, we have a working group with others within the county. Some of the local municipalities have been using Laserfiche for 20 years and have records management coordinators. We're not at that point, and we're closer to some of our friends in Luca-Badolph and Adelaide Metcalfe and North Middlesex. So we're getting at the beginning stages, but we've decided on a strategy of how we want to move forward with particular items going in first, most of those being from the clerk's department. What we're doing right now, though, is starting to move our property files. So you'll know that there's a large bank of cabinets that sit across from where Linda and Barbara sit. Those are the information that we've got on all the properties within the municipality. So we're looking to scan that information in and have that information accessible in Laserfiche. This, I can tell you, the building department is excited about this because that helps to promote them being able to view something if they happen to be in another office, but wanting to deal with a file associated with Southwest Middlesex. If they can access that remotely, it really helps speed things up. So in terms of public works, facilities and recreation, they are getting started with specific projects and pulling some of those items forward. So that's where we are.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Bartlett, I can't see you. I have no image of you, but just give me a holler, Doug, if you have a question.
Hello, Mayor.
Councillor Vink has a question.
Oh, Vink? Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Yes, to Jill. Yeah, you mentioned about the Limerick landfill site in your report, but I haven't heard nothing about the Trillium landfill site. That was a big issue at the last election. And so why is that not on your report? Because I thought during the meeting, we were told we were going to have a report on Trillium before the year end. So what's going on with Trillium landfill?
Sure, I can speak to that.
Go ahead, Jill.
Thanks. So the Trillium landfill plan, I think we've provided the information to council already that the plan for Trillium, what council asked the consultant to provide was a closure, the options for a closure plan, the option for mothballing, and the option for operating, design and operation to restart Trillium. So that plan took a fair amount of work, but it has been submitted to the ministry, and the ministry continues to review it. We've heard from the ministry. Golder has touched base with them to see how they're progressing. I don't really have an update beyond that because we will wait until the ministry approves the submission, and then I would like to see our consultant Fabiano from Golder come back and do a presentation to council so that they have a good picture of what it is that has been approved. And then at that point, council may want to make a decision of how they'd like to move forward with dealing with that particular site.
Thank you, Jill. Councillor Vink, that information will be forthcoming, and we are going to set up an arrangement to have someone from Golder, a representative from Golder, address council on that. Any follow-up questions, Martin?
Yes.
Seeing, oh yeah, you have one more question, Martin?
Oh, no, that doesn't.
Okay, thanks very much, council. I'm looking for hands here. Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. So Jill, you talk about the official plan review, hopefully next year, and it has been delayed a little bit. And why is that?
Yeah, so through you, your worship, I wish it had started already for sure.
I know it's not your fault, the delay.
No, that's okay. I think that just having the expertise to go through the policy side of that has been something the county has been growing. They've contracted out some service to help initiate the exact same type of process for Luke and Vidal. So with a consultant with a lot of background in land use planning and Middlesex County. So that's where they're starting. I think too, other municipalities have opted to move ahead instead of working solely with the county. So they are reaching out and contracting their own consultants to do the work so that the work gets done on their schedule. The cost of that is fairly significant. So the reason I haven't proposed that for us is just I'm trying to make sure that the requests that are coming from staff are something that we think that the municipality can afford to bear, given all the other things that we have coming down the pipe for us. I think in Middlesex County, it's around $200,000 that they're going to be spending on undertaking that review. So I would prefer to wait, but if it's something county would or council would like to move forward on sooner than the county schedule, we can certainly go to the market to try and get consultants to help move it along. But my plan is to try to at least position us so that it's we're as ready as we can be once the county is ready.
I could continue, Mayor Mayhew. So,
go ahead.
Jill, the one thing we don't want to do is let that go any further. That's my concern.
Yeah.
And so I'll just comment that when the municipality decided to contract with Middlesex County for planning a few years ago, that was one of the main concerns, that county would be able to handle the official plan review. And they assured us at the time they could. So that's just my concern on that.
Yeah. We can certainly invite the director of planning from the county to speak to his approach for 2021 if council would like, or provide some written comment.
Well, I think I'd appreciate something, even written comment. I think some assurances that we would be starting that in the new year.
Yeah.
That's just my thought. I don't know what everybody else thinks about that.
Yep, I see other questions here. Hands up. Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
I just was wondering, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it was my understanding under the provincial government, they didn't want us moving forward with official plans because they were at the time doing reviews like in Oxford County. And so they sort of made recommendations. Is that part of the reason how come this might have been delayed?
Through you,
Jill,
your
I'll let-
worship. Yeah, it was a limited scope that the province had put forward in terms of regional reviews. And it was for regional governments, Oxford County being included in that because it functions as a region. So it's the restructured county of Oxford, but it really functions as one of those first regional governance models. I don't know that had an impact for Middlesex County. I can ask the director of planning if that played a part into it.
Okay. Council, yes, third question, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I assume that's okay. You asked Councillor Vink if he had another question, so I'll go right ahead. I'm just going to point out that, as you mentioned, Jill, Luke and Badolf are doing the review now.
Yeah.
At the county as the contract to do their planning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Krista, did you have another question? I saw your hand up there. Nope. Okay. Anybody else? Well, perhaps Jill, maybe patience in working with the county will have a benefit in terms of what we pay for that. I'm sure if we went independently with a consultant, it may not be as competitive as it would be if we had the assistance of the county. So perhaps our patience will be rewarded in a fiduciary manner. Council, thanks again, Jill, for that report. It was very intensive and interesting. There's lots of good things. That'll be a file we won't get rid of.
Oh, very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're well. Thanks you again. We'll move on. Council, I don't see any other questions. Jill touched on the building. We are into finance, and at this time, we'll go through the business plan with Kristen. And Kristen, take us by the hand on this, and you do your stuff.
All right.
Just before I go that, Council, before I'm sorry, Kristen, before we move on, Council, may I have a motion to receive Jill's report as information only? A motion to receive Jill's report. Councillor Bartlett moved it, seconded by Councillor Crothers. Any questions? All in favor? Received for information. All opposed? Carried. Kristen, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but you go ahead there. We have to get the motion out of the way.
All right. Well, the finance department, as you know, the key goal or the main objective of the finance department are to develop and maintain the capital and operating budgets, because those budgets form the tax rate that is levied on the individual property, so that we can acquire the funds necessary to implement council's strategies. But once approved by council, we also perform all of the basic accounting functions, including the calculation and collection of property taxes, water and sewer charges, dog tags, licenses, permits, recording of all expenditures, banking, accounts receivable, accounts payable, payroll, preparation of financial statements and variance reports, and filing of all the government remittance forms that are required. Under the finance department also falls the municipal insurance policy. So we oversee that, make sure that our liability is at least at a manageable level for the municipality. We apply for grants and do the grant reporting, so that obviously the more money we can receive externally, the less we have to raise through our taxes. And we are tasked with the management of the assets, and then working with the asset management plan, and any other reports and analysis that counselors are looking for. So really our strategy is to provide accurate and timely financial information to all our customers. So whether that's the public or council, other municipal staff, government agencies, the county. Sorry, I'm just trying to hit on some of the highlights because I know it's that exciting. So some of our core business services are regular general accounting, collection of fees, and services, liaise with various government agencies. We manage the accounts receivable, payroll and human resources, accounts payable, payment of invoices, production of financial statements, information technology and financial systems management. That's something I didn't mention before. Insurance and asset management. So I don't know that you want me to read all of the legislative standards that we're required to adhere to, but there are several, most notably the Canadian Public Sector Accounting Standards and the Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. So I guess, so if I just scrolling down to my 2020 objectives were service reviews, and that is ongoing. So we worked with the county. Jill mentioned this a bit in hers. We were reviewing the payroll processes, comparing our processes with neighboring municipalities and seeing where there were strengths and weaknesses in everybody's processes. So I think we're going to work together as a treasurers group to come up with maybe efficiencies that we can obtain by working together, the different municipalities. Desegregation of data within Citywide. So we're currently still working with Citywide on that. We're trying to break down the assets between the manageable pieces, basically because most of them will have different useful lives. So not every time we work on a road do we dig up the whole base and replace the entire road, or a bridge may need certain components replaced, but not the entire thing. So when we're planning on asset replacement and maintenance, we want to make sure that we are breaking it apart so we can look at the various components of it. So that's something that is still ongoing. We did have to come up with a few new procedures and documents a little bit on the fly to work with COVID. So we're trying to streamline some processes and make more things available online. For example, the counselor timesheets that are online, still some bugs I can work out on that, I think, but those types of efficiencies we're trying to gain to keep people safe. We have not yet implemented the new website. We're working with County IT on that. Electronic transmission of invoices. So we've partially adopted that. We used to employ a service called ePost. I'm sure some of you are aware of that, where it's kind of a repository where we would upload our invoices and then the customers could go access them from there. We kind of have steered away from that. So we've stopped that service. For those customers, we were able to direct cut over to a direct mail out of their water and utility bills so that they didn't experience a disruption in their service. But we're going to try and roll that out to more and more customers. It's quicker for them to receive. They don't have to go get their mail. It saves on postage and paper for us. So there's a lot of efficiencies in the electronic transmission of invoices. Of course, you don't have to sign up for that. For people that want to still receive it by the mail, we obviously continue to do that. sale of surplus properties, we were able to sell 3 this year. All of those funds have been reserved, so we can use those for whatever projects council deems necessary. The investment analysis and investment policy, I have deferred. We had some funds that my intention was to have council endorse an investment policy so that we could make some money with our money. And then COVID hit and we're building a daycare and there are less idle funds now. So I will still do that, but it's less of a priority right now. The phone system should be installed on Monday. Yay! That's a big improvement for us. And the procurement policy, we still would like to revisit, but have yet to do that. So, so going forward, 2021 to 2023, I'd like to, like I said, expand the electronic transmission of the invoices, review the fees and services bylaw. Again, I know this is a bit cart before the horse, but you'll see in the budget survey, a lot of respondents said that they would support increased fees in certain areas so that they're directed towards the user instead of the general tax base. Investigate a budget software, which would streamline each department. Right now, I maintain it all in Excel, and I worry what would happen if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, because the Excel files are a bit of a beast. So if we have the ability to access a budget software, then Greg is kind of in charge of his own, Jill can do her own, and then I can input payroll and, kind of roll it all up. I'd like to look at ergonomics and increased ergonomics training for staff, especially with some people working from home. Update the policy for tax sales. The legislation says we can start pursuing those after 2 years. Previously, it had been 3. And implement any findings of the payroll project when that becomes available. We'll need to revisit and review the water sewer rates and the investment and procurement policy. Succession planning, I think we may have some people approaching retirement in the next, 5 to 10 years. So want to make sure that we have plans in place to suck the knowledge from them while they're here so that we can pass it on to somebody new when they go. And automate some of the payroll processes. I think that about wraps it up. I don't foresee any changes in our staffing levels in the finance department. And we are all regularly updating. I did some human resources training. Our deputy treasurer stays on top of the payroll legislation. Our tax clerk keeps on top of our Keystone application and any changes. Actually is very involved in requesting changes to modify and enhance the service. And our utilities clerk is busy with keeping on top of drainage legislation and attends the OMAF for drainage course every couple of years to make sure that she has got all of the current knowledge that there is to have there.
17 hours.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't take 17 hours.
No, sorry.
That is all I had.
Kristen, thank you. There'll be questions, I'm sure, for council, and I see Councillor Cowell's hand first. Go ahead, Councillor Cowell.
With regards to succession planning, I think we can agree we'd like to have the opportunity to see promotions from within. Is there anything in succession planning where there might be training that we can provide for our employees to make sure that we're prepared for that? Because hiring from within is certainly cheaper than hiring from without. like outside. So I just was wondering if we invested in our employees through training, what kind of budget implications would that have?
Good question. So we, finance is fairly prescribed in some of their training. So I guess it would depend on the level. If somebody is looking for, one of the clerk positions, there are courses offered through AMCTO. There's nighttime courses available through Fanshawe. If you're looking for more an analyst or a deputy treasurer, you'd want some more intensive accounting training there. But for sure, we make it a part of our annual review process to discuss with each staff member how we feel they're currently operating, how they are finding their position, and where they want to go. So, and based on that, we could customize some training to put in the budget for them to enhance their skills to move up if they choose.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell. Thank you, Kristen. Councillor Bartlett, go ahead, and followed by Councillor McGill.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Kristen, you'd mentioned the procurement policy, and I believe a while ago we talked about maybe changing the threshold on that. Did we go anywhere with that?
No, I think between Jill and I and Greg, we'll probably do a bit of a comprehensive review and compare what our neighboring municipalities are using as thresholds there. Because obviously it just takes, we want to balance the transparency with the efficiency. Because if, obviously it's more transparent to be able to put everything out to tender and get quotes for everything, but it is definitely less efficient and much, much more time consuming. So, a set of tires for one of the big trucks would be over our limit. So to write up all the documents, get them out to the public, review them when they come in, and then make the purchase is less ideal in some situations. Obviously, for something like the, build of a daycare, that's definitely the way we want to go. But I think we want to find the right balance for us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McGill, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm looking at the, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'm looking at the staff resources, and I see in this report, it talks about full-time equivalents for 2018, 2019, 2020. No change. I'm assuming going on 2021, 2022, 2023, still no change?
Still no change, yes.
But the previous report just talked about 2021, 2022, 2023, didn't mention whether there had been any change back to the previous years. And I don't think in that case, no change either.
No.
But when we go on to some of these other reports, like especially facilities and recreation, I'll bring that up again.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep, the finance staff has been consistent since I started, and I think sometime before that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McGill and Kristen, I'm watching for hands there. If there's any other questions, I'll give you a few seconds. Seeing none, but thank you, Kristen, for that report. And yes, the procurement policy, I've chatted with the administration on this, brought it to their attention some time ago that I was concerned about that. I think the word is balance, but it's a number that has not been changed in many, many years. I've inquired with other mayors what their thresholds are. And there's other benefiting factors from that too. One is we can address issues much quicker. We can engage local businesses and contractors much more easily. And in terms of the fiduciary or monetary aspect of contracts, very often they can be more competitive than a tender at times. And on a casual basis, you can inquire about a price. If it's not acceptable to you, you can make another query and you can compare them. So there is certainly advantages by raising that threshold. And that'll be a discussion that council can entertain in the future. And I look forward to that for a couple of reasons. One, efficiency. The aspect of engaging local businesses and contractors. And thirdly, I have found that very often it is just as competitive, if not more competitive than some of the tendering processes with that balance that Kristen has mentioned. Thank you. Awaiting us is the largest part of our budget. And before we move on, I'll entertain a motion that Kristen's presentation be received for information purposes. Thank you, Councillor McGill. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Any discussion? Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now, at this point in the meeting, we get into the big bucks. Greg, you can take us through this. Okay. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good, Marilyn, and through you, Jill, can you let me share?
Yep. Yeah, I already made you co-host, Greg.
Okay.
Let me know if it's not working.
I wanted to start out with Public Works, and I don't really know if I should be showing everybody else all my other things, folders here, but let me just open that one again, if I can. Not that, that's some of these. You can't, can you see that?
No.
Yeah, I'm trying to get rid of it, but it's not helping me here, my computer. All right, now I'll start with, hopefully I can get the, I don't know where the Public Works. Hold on, maybe I got it here. No. I had them both, oh, here it is. Okay, so I did have them both open just so I could click on them. So I will take us through Public Works. First, I was going to make a few comments with regards to the procurement policy, but I think that that's been well covered. Certainly in my department, we do feel the effects of that on a daily basis on trying to get work done. I think people have mentioned tires and fire hydrants. I mean, most of those cross the threshold. Just one tire on a grader is over $5,000. So certainly something that, you know, Kristen and Jill and myself need to work on and get something to council that's something that we can live with, that sort of expedites the process of getting work done. Because, you know, certainly in the Department of Public Works, we're results driven. You know, we're a service delivery department. And, you know, what we build, what we do is totally reflects our residents on a day-to-day basis. So basically, you know, the Public Works Department is responsible for water, wastewater, stormwater, drainage, landfills, curbside waste collection, transportation, and involves all capital infrastructure and the complete operations of the Public Works Department itself. So certainly in water operations, we've seen a transition in the last couple of years from, you know, some participation of our staff working with Aqua, and now we see Aqua looking after our complete water and sanitary programs. I say that at the same time, we do have one dedicated, so about a staff and a half of dedicated personnel that works every day in doing locates in the municipality. So we're processing, anywhere from 2 to 6 or 7 locates a day in the municipality, location of water and sanitary systems. So, that certainly, we still have the involvement of our regular workers in the water and sanitary programs, but they're doing final reads and locates. It doesn't take up 100% of their time. So, our staff that's involved there, hold on. Now I got to share my screen again so you can see it. I think it's that one or this one here. So now you should be able to see it, right?
Yep, we can.
Okay,
Greg.
perfect. So we're right here with water operation, wastewater operation. So, we do have one staff that's dedicated to this, about, I would say, 60% of their time. The rest of their time is in the operation of equipment. So, we still have some level of involvement with final reads and locates. But we've, the major component of the program for people experiencing any issues with water and sanitary are handled and investigated by Aqua with the use of our works program. So we have on-site communication with them on a regular basis when they do have issues. We have access to the work orders, etc. So that is something that's very smooth as far as I'm concerned right now, and the service is very high level. We have a 24-hour number that you can call and get immediate service in the area of water and sanitary. And the actual investigations as well as the results of what we find is certainly monitored by our own staff in conjunction with the regional supervisor from Aqua. Stormwater, I don't have to tell everybody sitting around this table that it takes up a whole lot of our time. It includes a municipal drain network of over 800 drains. It also includes all the drainage tile storm systems that we have related to our road network, which is over 800 kilometers in length. And it involves all kinds of investigations with regards to private landowners who have tile on their own property itself. It is something that's ongoing every day. And, our drainage superintendent, as well as the new public works supervisor, even in a day like today, are replacing culverts and doing investigations in the field with regards to stormwater. The other thing I will say about stormwater is we realize these events are a lot larger. These major weather events are a lot more larger than they have been in the past. And our infrastructure in many, many, many cases is just not capable of handling these large inputs of water that we get and in short periods of time. So, we have had instances just this last summer where we'll experience, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rain in an hour or so. And our systems have trouble accommodating at those times itself. One of the areas I'm extremely happy about is the curbside collection program. Our goal at the beginning of this particular program was to not have people worry about it. So they put their bins out, they get their garbage collected, and they bring their bin back in. And that's the extent of it. And I think that the new program is doing that. I've monitored the complaints. I've monitored the program all the way through the transition. Certainly give Danny a whole lot of credit and Waste Management a whole lot of credit of working to get all these containers out there and to deal with all the sort of abnormalities of the previous history with regards to the manual collection system. And it has worked well. We continue to address challenges every day, every week, but we work through those. And I like to see the truck go by and pick the garbage up, and then people wheel the bins back in and they don't have to think about it till next week. The only thing I'll add too with regards to landfills, and I won't say a whole lot, but just, make a comment about some of the financial challenges associated with, our landfills. So, I've had this conversation with several counselors as well. And when we look at even closing Limerick, we're looking for a large input of money from our taxpayers to close Limerick. Now, if I just threw a number or had a number, if it was $600,000, that's money that really is just going to close a landfill site. That's all that it's doing. And at 1% of tax increase that will raise $85,000 in this municipality, that'll tell you. I mean, that's almost a 7% or 8% increase in taxes just to close a landfill site. And this is, when I reviewed the Recreation and Facilities Department and, what we have there, just this type of input into closing a landfill is going to really affect what kind of service we can offer our residents. And when I talk about recreation, it'll make more sense, but and it's just one component of it. We still have to deal with Trillium, which is going to be a larger cost. And, my comments in our budget discussions has been that we need to put money away, and we need to put it away every year so that when we get to that particular point, we have the money in the bank to close the landfill site at Limerick, according to what MECP wants us to do. But we still will have major financial challenges when it comes to Trillium as well. But what we do at these landfills has an effect on the service delivery in public works and has an effect on service delivery in recreation. Transportation, we operate over 800 kilometers of roadway in the municipality, about 130 kilometers, 140 kilometers of hard surface roads. The remainder of those roads are in gravel. It is a big network of roadways, but we do have excellent staff. We try to respond every day quickly to issues associated with the roads. And they can be everything from issues with drainage to tree issues to grading, etc. And certainly from the inputs in the Budget Council understands that, these type of numbers that we're dealing with is a fair bit of a budget expenditure to deal with our large geographic road network. So it is a challenge every day, but our staff are very good at what they do. And, my goal as somebody who kind of leads them every day is to make sure that when we do get calls from people, from residents, that we respond as quickly as possible and we keep a very high level of service. So our key goals, again, are to provide very high level of service, to try to keep rebuilding our aging infrastructure from our asset management plan. And, to keep trying to deal with these landfills in a very progressive way, considering this was an issue and is an issue and has been an issue in the past. But it is a big challenge. It's going to be a big challenge, not so much, in both ways, in what we do and what council decides to do in the end and how they fund that. And at the same time, the funding of all those is going to affect other programs, and we just need to keep that in mind. Our key customers are obviously our residents, businesses, the county, federal government, government agencies, all other government agencies, contractors, and all municipal internal departments. I did go over our core business stuff already. I won't touch too much on that. Legislative standards. We follow legislation and policy every day. That's what we do. We certainly have links and some of the things that were created in our strategic plan. The only thing I will talk a little bit about here, because in the strategic plan, this wasn't with this council. I think they solidified it from a previous strategic plan, was to look at extraneous flows in Glencoe. We know that when we get large rain events in Glencoe, that we have challenges on Victoria Street, where all our effluent, pretty much all our effluent to the north of the pumping station on Victoria Street goes through that pumping station. So we do know we have infiltration in the system of stormwater. And on occasion, it doesn't happen all the time, but certainly we had a fairly large expenditure in this season, where we get so much flow that it starts to come up at the road through manholes into the roadways. So, we've had to get, 5 or 6 sucker trucks in there at those times and to move effluent from the roadway and in the system all the way over to the lagoons. So the question becomes, okay, so do we know about infiltration in the system? Yes, we do. But the people in Glencoe are strapped. This is not an easy thing to solve. The problem that we have is that we could tell everybody in Glencoe, take your storm pipes out of our sanitary system, but those people will still have a problem. They still need to get rid of their stormwater. So we can spend all kinds of money on sort of diagnosing the problem. But I think if you talk to some of the people that have lived in Glencoe for many, many years, they'll tell you what the problem is. The problem is that when the sanitary system came in 1970 and the 70s, that, you know, the connections were just made. And all the connections around houses, from leaders, from roofs, etc., are still going out into the system. But there's no way that the end result would be that these people would still be inundated with water. So that's not a solution to just, you know, show up and tell people to disconnect their pipes. You know, one of the things that did not occur when the sanitary system was built in Glencoe was that there was a single pipe that runs from the Victoria pumping station to the lagoons. There was, you know, when I looked at that information, there was another option, which was to run 2 pipes and to increase the pumping capacity at Victoria Street. So they did increase the capacity, but they never run that second pipe. And that's the solution to our problem. I think we'll get that answer when we have our modeling done of our sanitary system. But again, you're looking at another major expenditure for the citizens of Southwest Middlesex. So, you know, once I start talking about some of these large expenditures, you can see how, you know, we are going to have challenges financially. So that was just one of the areas that was put in the strategic plan, where there was work done to figure out extraneous flows. But the solution is not to just make it worse for the people in Glencoe. So I just thought I'd mention that because things do change over some time. So we do have links to the municipal asset management plan as well. You know, we are ongoing condition assessment with our infrastructure. You know, we're working every day with the GIS mapping to try to be more efficient. And certainly one of the biggest accomplishments of, if you want to call it that, was the implementation of the works module under the citywide system, which allows, you know, our workers in the field to receive work. It allows them to respond back to their supervisors with tablets as far as what work has been done and what has been completed. And once a project is completed, is marked completed, all this information is recoverable for us. And we will be producing information in the future that gives you a breakdown of where we spend a lot of our time as far as, you know, our workers in the field. The integrated mapping is something that is used by a whole slew of people in the municipality. And, you know, we can use the mapping sitting, talking on our phones to tell us what infrastructure is in the ground. And we do that on a regular basis. Yeah, so now I'm just going to touch on some goals. Like, this isn't a, you know, a comprehensive look at what everything has been done in the department, because in public works every day, I mean, it's just one, you know, one issue after another issue. We receive calls, you know, we respond to those calls, do investigations, and try to get the work off our list and make sure that we, you know, respond quickly and produce work that's a high standard. So the first one I'm just going to touch a little bit on is the asset management program. This is an ongoing program. You know, I'm working with Kristen and Jill on sort of redefining our assets at this particular point. And certainly we brought the works module into play through the asset management program. At some point, we will tie the assets into the works module so that when we do work in the field, say we replace a big culvert, that then the asset management program is updated at that particular point, which then would produce a new useful life for that piece of infrastructure. And you know, you wouldn't see a you know, a capital project to replace that in the future, you know, until the useful life was comes to fruition. So we participated in the you know, to assist council in the development of the strategic plan. We're constantly on the watch to pursue any grant opportunities to help the residents of Southwest Middlesex. We're working, this is one of the areas that, you know, I think's improved a lot. You know, just working with developers. You know, when I first arrived here, there was very little development. Now it takes up a huge part of my day. Just working with engineers to try to get applications processed and to keep the work flowing in our municipality. So we work with developers at all stages of their development. And that's everything from, you know, the pre-conceptual meetings that we have with developers right down to getting the actual site plans reviewed by engineers, and, you know, the development of, you know, development agreements associated with these developments. So you know, I work every day to try to take bureaucracy out of this section and to try to get these things moving forward as quick as possible. I did mention the curbside collection program. This was completed in 2020. To prepare and process all capital projects in transportation and sanitary. Certainly on the sanitary side, we were far more effective than were on our own capital list. Primarily because, you know, the pandemic sat us down for 2.5 months. And then we had to kind of look at the capital list and say, you know, what is really a priority, or what are council's priorities to kind of move forward. So we did that. Is it disappointing? Yeah, it's disappointing for me. I mean, every time I look at a sidewalk, I'm disappointed that's, you know, not in the best repair. So, you know, our goal is to keep moving forward, and certainly the new structure that council approved will help in the sort of delivery of capital programs and capital projects in the municipality. But I did put down some that we took a shot at, like the River Road restoration, the roof replacement at the Glencoe Yard, the downtown lighting replacement, stormwater management plan for Wardsville, and the surface treatment project for Melbourne and Middlemiss. Not too much on the bike pass from the county, so that hasn't moved forward very much. The creating of municipal standards, that's ongoing right now. The landfills, transfer station, and curbside collection program, certainly we're operating a weekly transfer station at this particular point. And I have said a whole lot about landfills. I don't want to say too much more. One of the areas that was a problem for the municipality, and not because of you know, anybody that's sitting around this table, you know, it was really sort of the historic way that you know, councils have dealt with municipal drains. So we did implement a new schedule and a new way of processing municipal drains, which includes public scoping and improving the communication with people that are affected on drains. And, you know, that has been very successful. But at the same time, we're committed to that. You know, if people are going to have to spend money, then we're very committed to making sure that they know where they're spending their money. And whether it's you know, an improvement to a drain or a new drain or maintenance, it's something that we're doing far more effectively than we did, you know, in the past. And, you know, I want it to continue in that same direction. The modeling of our water and sanitary systems, I'm working with Screech right now on this, and this will produce where our deficiencies are in water. And I'll just give you an example that we have very low pressure in Appin, which is restricting our development. So when we have, you know, people come to us and say, you know, we'd like to buy 3 lots and build on those 3 lots, we don't really at this particular point have the water pressure to even provide water to those particular facilities or those, you know, those properties. Simply because if we do that, we're going to reduce the pressure even further in Appin to the point where it would affect the existing residents. And so the modeling of the water system will tell us what we have, it will tell us what we need, and it will set out the pricing associated with that so that we can move forward. Because, you know, this type of thing is key for development. I mean, if I can give an engineer an actual modeling study of our water system and our sanitary systems, you know, that's going to help quicken the development along. Right now, we don't have those in place, and we're requiring that from the developers. So their engineers are producing this information for every development. And what we want to do is a system in the future to make it a lot easier for them to develop in our municipality. Standard operating guidelines. This was, it's partially complete. We do have a full set of standard operating guidelines for the Public Works Department, and we need to customize some of them. But this was a big step. And, you know, these are now in place, and, you know, we'll sort of formalize and move forward quickly in that particular area as well. Nothing was done with regards to the investigation of the sanitary for Appin and Melbourne and the winter operations plan for serving residents as far as snow plowing and sidewalk snow removal was completed, and it's completed every year, but was updated. I'll just go through some of the goals of 2021. Certainly to continue to work with the asset management plan. I mean, my goal with the asset management plan is pretty straightforward. Once it's complete, it will produce a capital plan for the municipality based on the condition of our infrastructure. That's where we need to get to. You know, landfills transfers will continue to move forward with this and present council with all the information that we have. Jill did make some reference to the situation with regards to Trillium. That project was notified today from MECP that project will be complete as far as they're concerned. They will have their information back to us no later than December 31st. That stuff has been filed with them and they're reviewing it right now. Service levels, to just keep this high service level. I mean, I'm kind of like the idea that when people call that we respond, and we respond quickly and professionally, and that's what we need to continue to do. We'll continue to work in the municipal drain process to include people in the process, so that people know that they just don't get a bill in the mail and they go, what is this all about? So whether it's maintenance, improvements, or new drains, we want to continue to improve and to keep people in the loop, and find out what they think about an improvement to a drain on their property. Find out what they think about a maintenance activity that's going to occur on their property. Capital projects, you'll notice that some of the projects were moved forward into 2021. And we'll, but there are still some that I'm going to get off the table here before the end of the year. So standard operating guidelines will continue to work there. Modeling, we'll make sure that comes to fruition. We'll look into more information with regards to systems in Appin and Melbourne and our own system, and see if there's anything to be done there. Certainly the municipal development standards will have those in the short term here shortly. Similar goals for 2022 and 2023. I don't see anything that's stands out there that would say, oh yeah, we have to do that then. We will end up doing a fair bit of capital work with regards to the asset management program once we continue to move in the direction of the condition of our assessments. So, obviously when the recreation department restructured, it did cause some restructuring in public works. So, what we have in place now is we have the director, which is myself, and we have a public works supervisor in the field. We have an admin assistant at the office. We have a crew leader and operations staff. There's 6 operations staff, and we have a couple. We have got 2. I don't know where my numbers went. I had them in there, but they're gone. But anyways, we have, maybe they're right here. Sorry, the direction. We have 1 shared assistant at the office. We have a crew leader, 6 full-time operators, and 2 full-time contract staff in public works. And we have a 24-hour service number for the people in the municipality. Anytime they have an issue with roads, trees, etc., there's a number 24 hours a day that's carried by our staff, and we respond immediately to those calls that we get. Water and sewer, we have a 24-hour number that is responded to by Aqua. So if you had a blockage of or water leak or whatever it is, that number is available to the residents to call, and they will get immediate response from the on-call phone. So typically in the department, we deal a fair bit with greater training, winter operations training, and all the standard training that goes on, whether it's chainsaws, etc. I haven't gone real deep into the training. I've given you some general ideas. And then the last thing I did was just make a note about the 2020 restructuring that happened in recreation and how it did affect the public works department itself. The model in public works is excellent model as far as service delivery is concerned. I have to work every day now to remember that when something comes in, that it goes directly to the public works supervisor, and then they get it fixed. And using our works program, I'm certainly giving guidance and help to Rob every day, but he's doing an excellent job in delivering this part of the program. So Mary Ellen, that's kind of what I have for public works. I don't know if there's any questions there at this particular point. I certainly can answer those.
Thank you, Greg. That's pretty exciting stuff. We know that we have certainly some challenges and opportunities at the same time. So it was I received well on this end. Council will take a moment to take time for questions. You can direct them directly to me, or directly to Greg, rather. And Greg, if that's all right with you, the chair will monitor them, and we can open that up for council. Greg, are you done sharing your screen? Can we go back to a
Yeah,
full
I'm gonna
view?
go. I'm gonna take us back here, so I'll stop sharing. Now we're all there again.
Okay, great. Now I can see everyone's hands. And Councillor McGill is the first one to have his hand up there. Go ahead, Councillor McGill.
Well, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'll continue on that full-time equivalent position line. It says 12 and a half for 2021, 2022, 2023. How does that compare to the previous 3 years?
Well, the complement is the same. Since I've been there, that hasn't changed. The only change would be that, you know, there has been one outside the union that was in the union before. So, you know, the situation you have, so we have to appoint a new crew leader, and that is out on the market right now and closes tomorrow. So we will appoint that crew leader, but that is a working position. And so the only difference that you would have is you would have one full-time complement that would only be available in the case of an emergency to operate a piece of equipment, etc. And the other thing was that it did, you know, if you go back from what we started, we had 6 total staff in public works, and we had 2 staff working in water and sanitary. But they weren't available. At times they weren't available to transportation, yet we had 10 pieces of snow equipment. That was changed when we made the move to Aqua, and we deferred or moved those individuals back into transportation. And when it snows, we have everybody available to get to every portion of the municipality. That is encompassed in our winter operations plan. And you know, that response, that was a huge difference in the service delivery levels at that particular point. That happened under this council, was a decision of this council, and has been a big plus. And like I had mentioned earlier, the only involvement that our workers have in public works, in water and sanitary, is locates and final readings. That's it. The rest of the time, and to be honest, before, if we had a big water leak going on, we wouldn't have been able to plow our roads because we would have had that many people tied up in a water leak. That situation does not exist today, because we can put off a final reading, or we can put off a locate if we have a snowstorm, to make sure that we've got every piece of equipment on our roadways, and that ensures that our residents are safe. And I don't know who that is, but somebody's talking. It's not from my house.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank
Did
you.
that answer your question, Mark?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vink, I see your hand up. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Alex and Greg. Isn't it true with the recent reorganization that we now have one more member of management?
Through you, Mayor Allen, no, I think what we have is we have an operator, and in the crew leader's job description, that's responsible for every day for doling out the work to the other workers. So that person is an operator as well. So, you know, the only difference that we would have is that when we had a public works, like say in Rob's situation, Rob was in the union before, but he wasn't operating equipment even then. So we now have him in management. The only difference is that the only way that he can operate equipment is in the case of an emergency. So, you know, I don't look at it as another person in management. I mean, even the workers did not want that. They wanted basically somebody who was going out to work every day, but was also a worker. And that's pretty much what we gave them.
Yes, a follow-up question. Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Well, I beg to differ a little bit. We now have two more non-union positions. I'll go with what you say, but we now have two more non-union positions.
Through you, Mayor Allen, who would that be, Councillor Ing?
Well, you mentioned Rob and then the new facilities supervisor. Facilities and recreation supervisor.
Yeah, no, I would agree that there are those positions, but I'm only presenting public works stuff right now. And I was responding to public works. I wasn't responding to the facility side. Because that's what we're talking about right now is public works and the service delivery model that's in place. So I don't know, I would agree, yes, there are two new positions, but you know, that's not what we're talking about right now. I'm only addressing the situation in public works.
And the contractual commitments we've made that they are in a position where they can work if the municipality requires it in a state of emergency or duress of some type.
So when Rob came out of the union, that was part of the agreement, was that if there was a situation where it's an emergency, he could then operate pieces of equipment. That was very similar to what he was doing before. And the crew leader itself is a working position. It's not a management position. So effectively in public works, you know, we have one position there that's outside the union at this point. So
well, it's
I see Jill wants to jump in there. So
yeah, you bet, Jill. Go ahead. And Councillor Scholdice, I've noticed your hand. I won't forget you there, Mike. Okay, go ahead, Jill.
Yep, sure, no problem. So thanks for the question. I just want to provide a little bit of a caution if the questions are going to shift towards personnel and labor relations, then council, those should be discussions that likely go into closed session.
Okay, thank you. All right. Council will take heed of that, and the chair will interrupt you if we continue to pursue contractual commitments. Councillor Scholdice, go ahead there.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Under training and development requirements, I see where it says an introduction to roads, TJ Mahoney. And I just wondered currently how many members of the Public Works Department have the TJ Mahoney Road School training?
It's a good question. And through you, Mayor Allen, I mean, we had one just take the course this week or last week. So I would say that we would have two of the complement that's there. That I know of. I haven't asked the question and you know, don't know that there would be anybody, you know, Mark may have had this in the past as well, but right now we have two, and our goal is to have as many as we possibly can on an annual basis attend the course. It was done virtually this year, and we had one person who was interested, so they did take the 2-day course, and you know, in the future we'll try to provide as much of that type of training as we can.
Thanks, Greg. Mike, I see you have a follow-up question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I just wondered if it's going to be mandatory for all members of the Public Works Department. I think it's a good idea that it's mandatory that they have this training.
Well, yeah, through you, Mayor Allen, that's certainly something that we can look at as far as, you know, we certainly need a budget to support that, but I have no problem looking into that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Councillor, we have some time here, so certainly go ahead if there's any other questions, and then we'll move on to facilities. Seeing none, business plan for facilities and recreation. If you can take us into that, Greg.
Okay, I'm going to try to share again here, so close your eyes.
Give it your best shot.
Yeah, facilities. There, I did it. Okay, so, you know, obviously everybody knows that I've been 2 or 3 weeks into this position, or a little bit longer than that. So, you know, part of what I've tried to do in the first bit here is to, you know, really get in and try to figure out, you know, what we do have and what we don't have, and where the Recreation and Facilities Department sits at this particular point. You know, we are challenged in the department in many ways. I would look at, you know, if I was an outsider that came in to just have a sort of an expert look at the department, I would say that we're probably you know, we're on the downward trend. You know, I look at the arena and I see the arena open 5.5 months a year, and it being used as a big workshop for 6.5 months of the year. You know, I see us with our arms out, you know, and we're involved in all kinds of stuff, you know, everything from, you know, other buildings, you know, we're involved in libraries, we're involved in daycare centers, we're involved in, you know, dog parks. You know, we have a lot of fingers out there, and that has worked fairly well at this particular point. You know, they're really, if we lack anything in recreation and facilities, we lack a long-term vision. You know, we really don't know what our community wants for recreation in Southwest Middlesex. And I just don't make that decision myself. I make that by having communications with a lot of the users, a lot of the interest groups itself. And we don't really have sort of a, you know, a long-term look at, you know, of what we really want to provide in recreation for the people in Southwest Middlesex. You know, I take phone calls on you know, many times from people that want to move into our community. And one of the first questions they ask me is, what do you have to offer as far as recreation is concerned? Well, we have an arena, we have a pool. Do we have any programming for residents in our municipality? Does the municipality offer any programming? That could be everything from a yoga class to, you know, co-ed volleyball at the high school, to, you know, bringing expertise into the community so that people can participate and learn recreational activities. And we're not doing a whole lot of that. So, you know, then I look at the sort of financial end of it and go, well, we are spending a lot of money, but, you know, are we getting the bang for our buck? And I just don't think we're doing that at this particular point. You know, because this program has just evolved, and it has, you know, in recreation, basically, I think everybody realizes that at times when people want to cut, this is where they go to. But recreation is an integral part of bringing people into the community and whether people stay in our communities. It is like so important. I can't tell you how important it is to people, but is extremely important. So I will take you through some of what you know, and obviously I'm also dealing with the previous goals, objectives, and what was produced, you know, last year and years past. You know, we certainly deliver services, you know, at the Glencoe Arena, in community centers and libraries, parks and open spaces. You know, I put train station and historical building. One of the things that I will mention that, you know, lots of people have told me, and one of the things that I remember when I first went to Glencoe was I remember the train station. And, you know, I look at that place and go, wow, I mean, what a building. This is like the centerpiece of Southwest Middlesex, that and farming, that and our Carolinian forest that we have. These are some of the reasons that people come into our community. So, you know, when I talked about financial challenges before, you know, I think we need, and certainly in recreation, we need to drive our money in the areas that really matter. And, you know, we just typically have not done enough of that in the past. And that's some of the direction that I would like to go in the future. We certainly are involved in the downtown beautification, which is kind of a combination of public works and recreation. The recreation department looks after flower baskets and flags and Christmas lights. You know, public works helps out there a little bit in getting some of the stuff taken down and stored, that type of stuff. But, you know, it is a big part of, you know, our community, and not just in Glencoe, but I mean, in Wardsville and in Melbourne and in Appin. You know, we need to treat all of them the same. And in the delivery of this, it's a really good program. It's something that, you know, do we want to stay at the same scale? I would tell you that, you know, we have 110 flower pots hanging in our municipality. I don't know if everybody realizes there's 110, but there's 110. That's a lot. Service delivery, you know, certainly the new model that council approved is going to increase service delivery in recreation and facilities. I mean, okay, so since I've, you know, I've been working directly with one full-time staff person and a previous full-time staff person and 2 contract staff to run this department. And it is smooth. And, you know, primarily because of the one full-time person and the you know, Raymond and Mark that have a lot of knowledge. about how the municipality runs their recreation program. That's been a very big assistance. But my experience is that this program can be run with the very similar setup that we have in place right now annually. The department is now managed by the director of operations, which is myself. The new position, the facilities and recreation supervisor position, will be added shortly. We have one full-time staff person in the field. We have 2 contract facility operators that we've engaged that are working and doing a fine job at the arena. And I've also hired a 3rd contract person that just is the other half of the help that we've received from our former retired individual. And that person just kind of fills the odd shift at the arena, like on a Sunday or a Saturday kind of thing. So in the 2020 budget, there is a position for recreation program coordinator. And what I expect to happen in this particular area is this particular person and myself and the new facilities and rec supervisor to come up with a plan to try to provide more programming for the people that live in this municipality. And an example would be, can I bring a yoga instructor into Eckford for a dollar figure and have that person come in there twice a week so that people can pay $5 and go there and do yoga? That's a program. That's a program being run by the municipality. That's what we need to see more of. I was really shocked yesterday to find out that the municipality had an agreement with the school board for the use of the school gymnasium. And that agreement's been in place since 2005, and it's free. So why are there not co-ed volleyball programs running there all winter? And I can't speak to what would happen in COVID, but this is available to us, and there's no reason why we can't work with the community to have recreation programs in our own community rather than them going other places to have recreation. It makes no sense. My goal for the arena, certainly, one of the things that we can't say a whole lot about at this particular point, but if we are successful in getting grants in the future, we're going to have to think really strongly about transforming our arena into a 12-month operation, a building that can support activities in the summertime, ball hockey for kids, pickleball. We can make these changes to the building if we're lucky enough to get some of this money in the future, so that people have an opportunity to recreate in our own municipality. And right now, I would say that we're just stagnant at the bottom end, and that, potential is the future. There's huge potential here, and it is exciting, and it is something that we can transform and change, and that people can then pay $10 to a pickleball instructor to come in to go to a pickleball clinic and learn how to play pickleball, or a tennis instructor, or a yoga instructor, or somebody who wants to teach or to bring in a person that can teach, about nutrition for infants. I mean, there's all kinds of programming that we can do that we're just not getting our bang for our buck right now. Certainly we are at the pool, but I don't think we're getting, we're just putting a lot of money into things because we're really kind of a day-to-day maintenance kind of a group. That's all we are at this particular point. I will touch base right now on something that's really important to this municipality, which is the facility and rec master plan. Right now, we currently have an RFP that's on the market where consulting firms have an opportunity to bid to be our consultant to take us through a facilities and rec master plan process. For me, it's pretty simple. The RFP basically is outlined so that the consultant will come into our community, will engage the general taxpayers, the general public. It will engage all our user groups. It will engage council. It will engage counselors, staff, to try to come up with a plan, a long-term plan of how we deal with recreation in Southwest Middlesex for the future. And then you'll see that, you'll see sort of a guiding document that councils from now in the next 20 years, the next 10 years, after review. Usually they're 20 years long. You get a review after 10 years. that sets the table as to how they would like to see recreation dealt with, and how the community and what the community expects to see from us. So it is an important document for us. The completion of that document in the RFP is for June of 2021, but that will give an opportunity for the consultant to come in to gauge what current programming we have now. They want to hear from everybody involved in recreation and facilities, and then come up with this document. Now, council won't be removed from this process, because as part of the reporting of this, there are several times in the process that the consultant must come back to council and say, this is what we found out, and then to get further direction. So generally that's, this is a really important thing for me, because, it will give us the vision. It'll tell us where we need to go, and it will certainly give us the actions that are required. So I'll just take us through that. I mean, certainly in recreation, always you have a huge number of interest groups and local or associations, et cetera, that we deal with. They're listed there. Our core business is certainly, the ice situation at the arena, our community swimming pool, baseball diamond, soccer fields. We have one tennis court over at the school. We have halls, meeting rooms, pavilions. We have a couple of arboretas. We've got a splash pad. We've got playgrounds. We've got a skateboard park, dog park, and our public open spaces. It does go through and basically lists what we do in those particular areas. I talk a little bit about legislative standards. There are a fair bit of stuff that legislation wise, but again, this is no different than the Public Works Department. We deal in legislation every day, and we have to work under that, especially when you're running public facilities. The goals itself, now this becomes an issue where, like, I wasn't responsible for the past goals, but certainly reporting on them tonight. And I don't say any no's with any disrespect to anybody. It's just, this is what reality is. The daycare facility, partially, it's being built right now. Certainly joint health and safety guidelines, standard operating guidelines, very similar to Public Works. It was a good job that was done in recreation as well. The downtown Glencoe beautification, the benches and garbage cans were purchased, and we have those. The partially ongoing air quality situation at the township office, municipal office is ongoing right now. And this department was integral in putting together the video and audio package for council in the council chambers. The train station and deck and steps, this item has been pushed to 2021. The only thing I'll say about that is I've encouraged Harold Crothers from the historical department to get his group together to see what they really want in this, the stairs and the railings, are the deck and stairs at the train station, because whatever we put in there is going to have to be consistent with the building itself. Obviously, you don't want to put in a pressure treated lumber around the building or whatever. So, I'm asking for input from them, and then we can, we can certainly procure this to make it happen. Rooftop railings, municipal office, the Glencoe ball diamonds, the scissor lift, the department software and hardware. Certainly the department was integrated into citywide as well, like Public Works. They didn't go as far as we did, but we'll push that once we get the new supervisor in. The Arboreta itself, it's an ongoing project, both of them, but our goal there is to certainly keep a lot better care of what we've got there and to make them nice places where people can go and have a walk. I mean, when I go by and see a dead tree, I just, want to see a live tree. So the facility and rec master plan, which is ongoing right now, the engineered wood fiber for playground bases, we only did one, and there's still two to do. So, those will be done in 2021. The additional programming, there was nothing done in it in 2020. But certainly 2021, we'll see, a whole lot of work go into trying to figure out with work in the master plan, how we can provide better programming for the people in the municipality. The Littleton Park basketball, that wasn't done. And the dog park in Wardsville wasn't done, and the Glencoe Library charging station is kind of outdated, so it wasn't done either. The goals itself, certainly the arena upgrade, and if we are successful in the future of getting money, then that will be a massive project to try to make that building far more usable for our residents. There is a little bit of work that has to happen at the pool. Certainly the upgrades at the Bob Martin Park for accessibility, that's something that needs to be done. And I don't know where this one came from, but it's in there now. The train station add a pavilion. I'm not sure that there's space for a pavilion. When I asked these questions to staff, they said that was kind of a just something that had been put in there. App and playground upgrades. You know, the additional programming, our continuous involvement in the asset management program, and the facility and rec master plan to complete that document for council approval. Similar goals for 2022. The program delivery model itself is myself as the director of operations, a facilities and recreation supervisor, 1 full-time operator, 2 full-time contract operators, 2 summer students, 1 contact recreation coordinator, and the admin support at the office. Department service, there's an on-call 24-hour response, you know, and there are different times where we're on different schedules based on events, based on, you know, the opening of the pool, the checking of facilities, all that type of stuff. So that is very consistent with what was provided in the past. Certainly the changes and risks that will impact our program delivery. You know, the aging facilities. I mean, we have an arena that was built in 1971. You know, it needs to be upgraded. You know, we have building at Simpson Park that's being used as a big storage building. It used to be a washroom, and it's not being used as a washroom. So, you know, we have to make a decision on that. Is it, you know, is that something that we really need and you know, something that we should be operating? That's just a couple. There are many of these within the municipality. You know, we always in recreation deal with demographic shifts because, you know, this will be a big part of the rec master plan. We'll try to figure out what the demographics are in our municipality. And then how can we deliver programs to help those particular age differences, the age groups, et cetera. You know, obviously in recreation always will be an issue with lack of rental income. But this will also be a big discussion that happens in the park rec master plan, which will be user pay system and what council is willing to support. And, you know, do we expect revenue, you know, when people use our facilities? And then to come up with a working policy. I know that Steve has and Kristen had something approved, but always user fee discussions happen with council. And when the consultants come in and ask you these questions, then, you know, you can give them whatever answer you want at that particular point, but they will consolidate that information. And usually coming out of a rec master plan, there will be an action item to quickly look at the user fee philosophy that, you know, that council has and that, you know, user groups have, and to try to get something that works for everybody. Environmental legislation, always a problem. And certainly the, you know, when we instituted the citywide program, that's going to help for long-term mitigating risks as far as insurance claims, et cetera. So training, there's a whole lot of training involved with recreation, everything from, you know, compressor room training to chainsaw training to sports and turf management, et cetera. And, you know, we have to do a better job in that and getting our people to these training sessions. And lastly, I put the same comment in this particular report with regards to the restructuring. I can't, you know, when I look at the, you know, the full-time units associated with running the department, you know, that may change in some time just based on the rec master plan and what council wants to do. But currently those numbers are sufficient to operate and run this department. So that concludes my shot at facilities and recreation, Mayor Allen, and I'll stop sharing the document.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Once again, big job. Excellent report. Council, we have a few minutes left. This meeting, we're near the tail end of it. The next item is bylaws. So we have time. We have a few minutes to ask Greg any questions on recreation. Councilor McGill, followed by Councilor Cowell.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I guess I got a couple of questions if you'll allow me.
Yeah.
What play area got engineered wood fiber in 2020? I know Melbourne was done in 2019. And also, what about the rooftop railing for the Eckford Community Center? We approved that in, I believe, the 2019 budget.
Yeah, through you, Mary Ellen, I believe the engineered fiber went in 2020, last summer, or no, yeah, it was the summer before. So, and the railings, there's been nothing done with that. So, you know, the only thing I would mention that, you know, with the, you know, the future opportunity that we have to get some grant money for the arena, there are many projects associated with that arena that we've deferred just to wait to see, because they would be incorporated in any type of large project that we would do at the facility. But that doesn't, you know, that doesn't mean that, you know, when we, when the department over the last couple of years, you know, had projects in there that it just didn't get done. I don't know why, because I wasn't there at that particular time, but you know, that wouldn't have stopped those railings from going in those particular areas. And what I've asked the treasurer to do is not to defer those particular projects, but to keep those on the list for next year so that we can actually get them done.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. And Councillor Cal, go ahead, followed by Councillor Crothers.
Could you please refresh my mind on the dog park? I was under the impression that the residents of Wardsville didn't want a dog park, and I can't remember if that there was a poll that had gone out that said yes, they did want it, or no, they didn't want it. So whether it's the ward councillors from that area, if they could refresh my mind, or if anyone remembers, but I'm surprised to hear it's on the books if they didn't want it. If they did want it, that's fine, but
yeah. So I, through you, Mary Ellen, I could just give a little bit of information on that. I mean, I think that what I was faced with was that was still on the books. And what I've asked the treasurer to do is just set that one aside until we do go up into Wardsville with the Parks and Rec master plan and hear from the community up there on what they really want. And certainly the group will have this information on the dog park. I'm not sure that a dog park, you know, the sort of the suggested dog park location where it was a good spot either, simply because it's difficult to have dogs in the midst of houses. And typically, you know, dog parks are where, you know, the dog park is in Glencoe. It's away from people. You know, people get to go out there and walk their dogs and that type of thing, and it doesn't really cause any type of problems. I wish I knew more, and maybe Martin can help me with regards to the you know, what the community voted on up there with regards to the dog park. But you know, of course I wasn't intensely involved. Mary Gay, maybe you know too, so.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Yeah,
I think Mary Gay knows.
I have some instability in my network connection tonight. I hope you can hear me. I've heard rumors of this poll, but I don't think that poll was an exercise endorsed by council. I don't think it's an official poll, but as you say, we'll certainly contact the community, particularly the Wardsville community, on their needs in recreation and what they would like to see. And we certainly will look forward to that and then engage Wardsville residents in that. Councillor Crothers, I thought you had your hand up there for a while. Ian, do you have a question?
Yes, through you, Mayor to Greg. Did you not receive the package of material I dropped off regarding the deck at the train station? That was quite a bit of information that I obtained from Harold Crothers and other members of the Historic Society. You got her. Okay.
I have it in front of me, so, and I appreciate that.
Well, I just checked when I heard you talking before, and there's quite a bit of the information I think that you're looking for should be in there.
Yes. So I appreciate that. And that was after, you know, had a good conversation with Harold, and you certainly helped me with that as well. So, you know, the key for me is to get, you know, when it comes to the train station, the more input that we can get and the better decisions we can make, the less controversy we're going to have in the municipality. So, and that is a building that, you know, I look at every day and go, wow, it's just a beautiful facility. And,
Amazing.
we need to continue making it that way. So.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you. Council, any further questions before we go? Seeing none, Greg, I want to thank you once again.
I think
Thank you.
Mike has a question.
Oh, has Mike got one? Did I miss you, Mike? Mike Scholdice, Councillor Scholdice, any
Yep.
questions? Yep, go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry I missed you.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I just wondered if there's been talk of the basketball court that was supposed to be going up into Wardsville. And I just wondered on the dog park if we couldn't have some public consultation before any decision is made.
Yeah, I can answer that. Mayor Allen, through you.
Go ahead, and certainly the basketball net is, we've kind of a moral obligation to go ahead with that because I think we all supported it. But Greg, I'll let you.
Yeah, so I mean, with the
sign it off.
basketball net, I just put it pretty simple. That project is still on the books. The only thing I would like to have more information on, and certainly, once we get into that community and start talking to people about what's required there, I would like to see more than just a basketball net. I would like to see more of a multi-use type facility that would accommodate basketball, that may accommodate ball hockey, that would accommodate, roller hockey, etc. And, I think some of that will come out of the discussions that we have with the community in Wardsville. And, I just don't know that just by putting up an extra basketball net, that's that's what would come out of those discussions. Now, my experience in putting up these facilities like this is that, the more we can do multi-range. So if we put up a basketball net, like a half basketball court or a full basketball court, I want to make sure that the kids can go over there and play ball hockey on it at the same time. Not, if basketball's not going on, that it's set up for ball hockey, that it's set up for roller hockey, that type of stuff. And I think that type of information is going to come out of the Parks and Rec Master Plan recommendations. And all I've asked finance to do is just kind of, can you set that one aside until we get through to that process itself? But it's still on the books. I do agree that we need to do something up there. And what was your other question about the dog park?
I guess just if we could get some public consultation.
Yeah, and I'm going to make sure that, and council will make sure that that happens in Wardsville with regards to the dog park and a site that can accommodate what people are looking for. That's a good site that's not going to cause lots of problems for other people in the future. So I think that's all going to come to fruition. And again, I mean, I know we're waiting on some of this stuff, but at the same time, we just don't want to put our money into something that's only going to work for a small portion of the people. We want to put our money in and maximize the use of our facilities. I mean, it's the same thing when people talk to me about Appin. I go, wow, I'd really like to, make sure that we spend money at that facility in Appin because it's very well used. And that's what we want in the end. We want well-used facilities and we want to put our money to good use. And those projects, both of them, Councillor Scholdice, are on the books. They're not removed. Just until we can get proper input from the community on what's the best thing to do up there for those two particular projects.
Yeah. I think we're going to have to move on, Council. Councillor Cowell has been extremely patient with her hand up there. Go ahead, Krista.
I had the opportunity to look at the RFP for the Rec Master Plan, and a lot of what it says is that the consultant will reach out to the residents of each specific area and any of the service groups who happen to be in that area. So, for example, on Appin, I believe there's a historical museum board there. So the idea being that because I've talked a little bit with Greg about this because we're moving into a rec meeting this week. And so the idea is that there is a little bit of money squirreled away for a couple of little projects, and the projects themselves are a bit disjointed. So the hope would be to reach out to that community before we put shovels in the ground to make sure that they're a part of the plan for each one of their communities as we grow rec in each area. So like Greg said, it's not just one basketball net, it's a multi-use basketball sort of surface, or if we put together some kind of soccer thing in Appin. So I just wanted to say that, like, same with Appin, when we took a decision in February to invest in the Appin Community Center, a certain amount of money, that is sort of the same idea, is that we had promised them that there would be consultation. And I think that this master plan, especially the way the RFP draws it out, will be the perfect opportunity to have a third party reach out that is non-partisan, we'll say.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kell. That's a good point. Yes, and Greg, just in Ward 1 there, we mustn't forget the Middlemas, a little piece
No,
of park
we're
up
not.
there that,
No,
yeah,
no, I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't,
yeah, that's,
you know, that's why I really wanted that surface treatment to move forward. So, I mean, certainly the street lights and, I mean, Middlemas sometimes gets left out there because they're far away, but, you know, they need it
We'll
as
get
much,
to it.
they need us as much as anybody else does.
Thank you very much. And we will certainly want to move on. And we got some development in Middlemas, which is very exciting. Council, everyone's pretty well had a chance. I'd like you to have at least a 40-minute break before our next council meeting. Unless there's any urgent question, I don't think I've missed anyone. I've been trying to watch your hands. I think we're going to call that closed. We appreciate the presentation that our staff has made. Administration have gone to a great deal of work to show you what is behind us and what may be ahead of us. And we're certainly indebted to them. My opening remarks were, in order to make good decisions, you have to have good information. And staff has certainly provided with that. Council, item number 6 on the bylaw is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of this meeting. Could I have a mover and seconder for that, please? For first, second, and third reading?
I'll move.
May I have yes, thank you, Councillor Crothers. A seconder for that motion? A seconder for the motion to confirm the proceeding of this meeting. Thank you, Councillor Vick. Any questions? All in favor? All opposed? I'm afraid my screen is frozen on many of you. And Jill, can you see the count on that? I'm going to have to rely on whether
Yes.
that was accepted or not. It was accepted?
It was.
Okay, thank you very much, Jill. I'm sorry to trouble you with that, but I only saw Martin's hand and Ian's hand and my own. So thank you very much. Motion is carried. There is a notification, Council, of the future meetings. November 25th, December 2nd. Item number 8 on the agenda. I adjourn the meeting at 6:16. Thank you very much, Council. Look forward to seeing you at 7. Councillor Vink, have you got a question? I see your hand up.
It's just waving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take care.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
See you at 7. Thank you very much, Greg. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Jill.